Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into some serious lyrical analysis?
Always up for a challenge, especially with a song as evocative as Mercury.
Right. And you know our listeners, they sent in some really interesting takes on this one, especially that opening line talking about onlyness.
Yeah, it's a powerful way to start a song. Just hits you right in the feels, doesn't it?
For sure. And it doesn't let up. The days that are met with onlyness aid and abet this loneliness,
Hmm.
like bam, double down on that feeling.
Totally. And it gets even more interesting when you think about those lines alongside the urban imagery that pops out.
Well, you mean like the wheels turning and the subway kept going? It's like constant motion, but going nowhere, you know?
Exactly. And that ties back to the feeling of loneliness, don't you think? Like being surrounded by people, all moving together, but still feeling completely alone.
Yeah, it's like that kind of urban loneliness,
Yeah.
right? The kind that comes from being surrounded by millions, but still feeling invisible.
Absolutely. It's not just about being alone, but about feeling unseen, unheard in this big, bustling world. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, especially in today's world, all
Yeah,
right?
totally. And it's interesting because the song doesn't just wallow in that loneliness. There's this recurring motif of Mercury that pops up, always linked with the night.
Right, like Mercury represents something else, something almost hopeful, maybe even a lifeline in the midst of all that darkness.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we interpret Mercury? Like, obviously it's the name of the song, but it feels symbolic, right?
Oh, absolutely. And in mythology, Mercury was a bit of a paradox himself. On the one hand, he's the guide to the underworld, but he's also the messenger of the gods.
Whoa, okay, I see where you're going with this. So, is the speaker seeking an escape from loneliness that might lead them to confront some darker aspects of themselves?
Right, and those darker parts are represented by the night, the underworld that Mercury is connected to. It's like they're searching for answers in the shadows.
It's like diving into the depths of yourself to find a way out of the darkness, right?
Right.
But then the imagery takes this turn towards the cosmic, doesn't it? Silver, starlit tapestry, countless eyes staring back. It's almost like the speaker is looking beyond themselves, beyond the city, into the vastness of space.
And that could be another layer to the whole loneliness thing too, right?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the cosmos are beautiful, but they're also incredibly vast and indifferent.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like you're trying to find your place in the grand scheme of things, but it just makes you feel even smaller, even more alone.
Exactly. And remember that line about the speaker struggling to even articulate their thoughts? It's like the vastness of the universe is mirrored in their own internal struggle.
Okay, wow, that is deep. This feeling of being completely overwhelmed, yet totally insignificant at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like the human condition in a nutshell. But then, just when you think it's all bleakness and existential dread, there's this interesting tension between feeling trapped and this longing for freedom, right? Like Venus in Steel, the unbreakable net. What do you make of that?
Venus and Steel. It's such a striking image, isn't it? Because Venus, she's all about beauty, love, pleasure even. But here she is, confined by this cold, hard metal.
Right, and then that phrase, unbreakable net, it feels so
Yeah, yeah.
absolute.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder, what could this unbreakable net represent? Is it societal pressures? Or maybe limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves?
Ooh, good point. Like the expectations we feel we have to live up to, or the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. It's like we're trapped by our own minds sometimes, right?
Absolutely. And the lyrics never explicitly answer that question, which I think is really powerful. It invites each listener to find their own meaning, their own interpretation.
Right. What resonates for one person might be totally different for someone else, and that's okay. But then, just as I'm picturing Venus stuck in her steel cage, the lyrics mention wings on your feet, rivers run deep. It's this yearning for something more, something beyond the limitations.
Totally. It's that classic push and pull, right? Feeling trapped yet still craving freedom. And then that line, your day is longer than your year. If you think about it literally, it relates to Mercury's orbit, right?
Yeah.
But metaphorically.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because on Mercury, a single day lasts longer than a whole year.
Oh,
It's like being stuck in this endless cycle, unable to
Like-
escape.
Exactly. Like you're constantly moving but not really getting anywhere. You're trapped in this loop, this unbreakable net of time itself. And then, boom, the lyrics take this sharp turn with, the tomb of the Red Queen is painted in vermilion. Talk about a change of pace.
Right. Out of nowhere, we get this incredibly vivid image, this juxtaposition of life and death that feels almost jarring, especially after everything we've just unpacked. So what's the deal with the Red Queen?
Well, first we have the color red, right? It's often associated with passion, intensity, even anger. It's a vibrant, attention-grabbing color. But then you have the tomb, this ultimate symbol of finality, of death.
It's like this clash between vibrancy and
Yeah.
emptiness.
Exactly. And vermilion, it's not just any red, it's a specific shade. It's a rich, almost blood red pigment, which adds another layer to the imagery, don't you think?
Oh, totally. It's like the lyrics are painting this picture of life and death, beauty and decay, all intertwined.
Right. And maybe, just maybe, it's a reminder that even in the face of death, there's still beauty, there's still passion. It's about finding meaning and making your mark on the world, even though we all know how this story ends. And that actually ties back to the idea of legacy, which I think is another important theme here.
Ooh, nice catch. Because if you think about it, even though Mercury was the guide to the underworld, he also had this role as a messenger. He helped people communicate, even after death.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, we're all going to die someday, but our actions, our words, they have the power to live on. It's about leaving something behind, making your time here matter. And that brings us to those final lines, the ones that offer a glimmer of hope after all that heaviness.
You mean alone we're tossed about, like a bottle in the sea, but together we ascend.
Those are the ones. Talk about a powerful message.
Right. It's like, yeah, life can be tough. We all feel lost and alone sometimes. But when we find each other, when we connect with others who get it, we don't have to go through it alone.
Exactly. It's in those connections, those shared experiences, that we find the strength to rise above, to ascend, as the lyrics say. And not just ascend in some metaphorical, spiritual way, but to literally lift each other up to make life a little bit easier, a little bit brighter.
Such a powerful message to end on. So as we leave the deep dive on Mercury today, I'm left with this question for you, our amazing listeners. What does that unbreakable net represent in your own life? What are those things that make you feel trapped, held back? And how can you, like those lyrics suggest, find your wings and ascend? Because maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to break free together.